Kutchins Adler, the Buttery Babe, coming to you straight from my kitchen. Today we're gonna make hidden nutrition tomato soup. What is that, you might ask? Well, I like everything we eat to have the maximum amount of nutritional value, and sometimes we just want a bowl of soup. So I hide things in it, like vegetables and beans. So, as you know, if you're an avid Buttery Babe watcher, I love to garden. I garden and I garden and I garden and I garden all summer, which in Chicago is only 100 days, it is quick. But I take what I've grown and what we cannot eat, I either can it or I stick it in my freezer, more likely because that's way easier. So we are starting with some stuff that is from my garden. It is now the winter, but that I froze. You can, of course, go to the grocery store and buy things. You do not have to grow them in the dirt. I like to, but most people don't have the time or the energy or a yard. I'm spoiled. So we're starting with 2 pints, which is 1 quart, of roasted tomatoes that are from my garden and frozen I took out for this show. If you don't have tomatoes from your garden, which obviously most people do not, you can use 32 ounces of canned tomatoes, puree, dices, San Marzanos, whatever you've got. If they come from a can, you want 32 ounces of tomatoes. If they're packed in a liquid or a juicer, puree, you want that too. We also have 4 roasted bell peppers. These I think are red and yellow from the garden. You can use fresh bell peppers. You can use frozen roasted bell peppers. If you get the jarred bell peppers, give them a rinse because they're packed in a vinegar. So those are good too. Just give them a little bit of rinse. My other hidden veggies, I've got 2 stalks of celery, and that's with the leaves. The leaves are yummy. And half of a big onion. We use big onions. So that's half a big onion. This is 1 can of cannellini beans. They are drained but not rinsed, so they're still a little liquid. You can also use chickpeas or whatever kind of beans you have in house. This is about 1 quart of carrot juice, 2 tablespoons of butter, and 2 tablespoons of garlic. And then we're gonna cook that all down, and then we're gonna puree it. So you can either puree it in the big blender or with your immersion blender. The immersion blender will leave it a little bit more rustic, a couple of chunks. The big blender will make it super silky smooth. We're gonna garnish today with some herb paste, where I just take all the herbs in my garden, rosemary, thyme, oregano, chives, parsley, and I puree it together with garlic and oil and keep it all year. You can also use some pesto that you made or that you bought, or whatever. And we also have some leftover frico from our cheese board a couple weeks ago. So that's just some Parmesan crisps. They're not necessary. They're delicious. This soup's also great with the grilled cheese or just a hunk of homemade bread. So give us a second. We're going to go over to the stove and we'll be back in a flash. Hey, I'm back. Buttery Babe with our hidden nutrition tomato soup. So it came up to a boil and we brought the soup down to a simmer for about 15 minutes. Now remember, the beans are cooked, so we're just going to heat them through. So those are going to get dumped in and let that just warm through. And then we're going to go back to the counter and puree it. This is the time where if you put a bay leaf in, take the bay leaf out because you do not want to puree that. Bay leaf shards. Okay, we'll be back in a second. Now we're going to puree the soup. In theory, you would probably want to let this cool down for a little bit first, but again, impatient, you've met me before. Today we're going to puree it with our immersion blender because I want it to be a little bit more rustic. If you want it super duper smooth, like if you're feeding kids, use your big blender. And start slow to get the little chunks broken up first, and then you can raise the speed. If you're doing this in the big blender, only do it in batches, and then take this part off the top. Use the top, but not that part, and put a double folded kitchen towel on there to protect you from the steam. So now we got it a little bit more going. This soup is great because it's full of all the nutrition, from the beans and the vegetables. It's gluten-free and dairy-free, except for the butter, which you can easily replace with margarine or oil. But you know me, Buttery Babe, I need the butter. That's all it takes. See, there's still some rustic little chunks in there, but I like the texture. I'm gonna gonna put that on a towel so we don't make too much of a mess on the counter. Now is the fun part where we get to plate it up and garnish it. As I said at the beginning of the episode, you can garnish, you don't need to garnish it, it's great how it is, but we're gonna garnish it with some herb paste that I make from my garden and some Parmesan Frico, which you can see in a different episode of Buttery Babe. So we're gonna put our soup into the bowl. And then, got our herb paste. You could use pesto, you could use some chopped chives or rosemary, whatever you got. Just about a teaspoon, and then plop it in there, and then do a little swirl so it gets distributed. You could also just put the herbs right into the soup. But I know if you're feeding kids, sometimes they're a little bit more finicky. And then we've got our beautiful Parmesan crisp right on the side. Lovely. Again, I'm Emily Kutchins Adler, the Buttery Babe. Please be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and my website, www.butterybabe.com.